Austin Rivers has now fired back at Draymond Green over comments Green made about his own career. Draymond recently claimed that head coach Steve Kerr held him back, suggesting that not enough plays were designed for him, and that after 2016, the offensive system essentially moved on without him. In his view, that limitation prevented him from becoming the player he believed he could have been. But not everyone sees it that way. There's a strong counter-argument that the role Draymond played was never meant to be about personal stats, and that's precisely what makes his career Hall of Fame worthy. The ability to distribute the ball, elevate teammates, and consistently impact the game in ways that never appear in a box score, that's what helped build the Golden State Warriors dynasty. Alongside Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and later Kevin Durant, Draymond was the connective tissue that made it all work. And let's not overlook the contributions of Andre Iguodala, Shaun Livingston, and the rest of that core, each one playing their role to perfection. So, before we get into what Austin Rivers had to say in response, let's go back and hear Draymond's comments in full. Then we'll break down exactly how Rivers answered and what it all means.
I don't like to get in these back and forths because, quite honestly, guys that you usually get into the back and forths with, they become back and forths because it's like one of them like severely tips something this way and the other just like kind of so far down that it kind of pulls you back a little bit. And so, speaking of Austin Rivers, I saw he said he's bewildered and it's ridiculous of what I said. And I just find it interesting that a guy who was the 10th pick in my draft, I was 35, who's on his second act, I'm still on act 1. He goes, Draymond, never been a scorer. Austin, you and I averaged the same amount of points in high school. And I say high school because that's when you were at your best. And then in college, he was still good. He was very featured at Duke because NBA careers, should he really talk about my NBA career? I'm still with my first team. He was gone from his first team in 2 years. The guy received the biggest bailout in U.S. history prior to President Trump bailing out the airlines when his dad gave him $42 million. And I tip my hat to Doc. I pray that I can give DJ $200 million or give Deuce $250 million. I pray that I can do that one day. I love how people just go take the 15 seconds that they want to take and make it a headline. But I really enjoyed watching Austin Rivers be bewildered.
Come on, Draymond. This is ridiculous. Seriously. Ridiculous. But you know what? I'm going to address it because you crossed the line and you were mad disrespectful for whatever reason. You've been around too long. We both were drafted in the same class. The fact that you don't have the wherewithal to do your due diligence and actually understand I was being highly complimentary of you on the Dan Patrick Show. But it's you, and I shouldn't be surprised. You always act irrationally, emotionally immature. And your anger always puts you in hot water. So here I am having to address a video of you belittling my career. First off, Draymond, we weren't the same players in high school. I don't care about our numbers being similar. I did it at the national level, the top level. Hence why I got the Naismith Award, and I got pretty much every award you can think of in high school. I was ranked number 1. You were ranked, I don't know. So cut it out. Next. College, you actually were a really good college basketball player, but it's hard to compare because I was only there for 6 months. Something you could never do. Talk about I was, one of the featured guys. No, I was the guy. I led my team in scoring. I was first team All-ACC, freshman player of the year, lottery pick. Stop. Next. The NBA, hey man, you got it, Dre. I mean, listen, I played in the NBA for more than 10 years, more than a decade, but 11 years, but I'm not a Hall of Famer like you. So I'll give you that credit. All right, you got it. But let's peel back that onion and understand why. Easy, Tiger. Okay? You have the delusion, the non-wherewithal. The irony of you saying I'm part of the biggest bailout in NBA history. Draymond, you were the luckiest basketball player I think I've ever seen, especially in modern day history. Let's talk about that. You were drafted to a franchise with the Hall of Fame front office, Bob Myers, Hall of Fame coach, Steve Kerr, the greatest shooter of all time, and perhaps the top 5 player of all time, Steph Curry, Hall of Famer. One of the greatest shooters, top 5 shooter of all time, another Hall of Famer, Klay Thompson. The Swiss Army knife himself, the guy who could do a little bit of everything on the floor, Andre Iguodala, another Hall of Famer. I know, keep up, it's a lot of talent. Not to mention one of the most lethal scorers of all time and arguably a top 10 player of all time, Kevin Durant, the same guy you chased off because of this, your mouth, you talk too much. And that's not even counting the plethora of talent around those guys. The Shaun Livingstons, the Barbosas, the Andrew Wiggins, the Jordan Pooles, who you also chased off. Cut it out. Draymond, you're the backpack jump shooter. You're the guy that everyone leaves open. No one guards you. There are hours and hours and hours of film of just you being left wide open. In fact, anybody can just YouTube or Google or watch any Draymond game ever, and he's open all game. There are clips of you getting a rebound and just driving in a straight line and just getting a wide open layup because everyone's fanning out to guard the actual talent on the team. Talk about Steve Kerr hindered your career. Bro, Steve Kerr made your career. How dare you? Coming at me? Are you kidding me? I wish I could give my son $200 million if I was a coach. Yo, the NBA doesn't give coaching jobs to guys who may or may not sucker punch one of the players and staff. You need to fall back, Dre. Let's just be frenemies.
Austin Rivers is essentially saying what a large portion of basketball fans already believe about Draymond Green's career, and honestly, it's hard to dismiss. That said, I'm not someone who thinks you could simply replace Draymond with a more offensively gifted player and expect the Warriors to achieve the same results. That team needed exactly what he brought. They needed toughness. They needed someone willing to do the unglamorous work, the screens, the rotations, the defensive intensity. They needed a player who could handle the ball, set up actions, and keep the offense moving while Steph Curry and Klay Thompson worked through multiple picks to get themselves open. Someone who could read defensive gaps and make the right play before the coverage collapsed. Draymond was that guy, and that's not nothing. But Austin Rivers' point still stands, and it's worth sitting with. Put Draymond in Charlotte, and he's not giving you what someone like Miles Bridges gives you on a nightly basis. The scoring load, the individual offensive production, the athleticism required to create and finish, that wasn't his game. And there are players across this league who will never sniff a Hall of Fame conversation. Yet, if you compare them to Draymond purely as individual basketball players, you could make a legitimate argument that they're more skilled offensively. Put him in a situation where the team needs him to generate offense consistently, where a certain level of athleticism and creation is required, and suddenly the conversation shifts entirely.
What's needed here is versatility, and that's without the luxury of having Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, two of the greatest shooters the game has ever seen, spacing the floor around you. Again, this isn't about saying that players some consider more talented than Draymond would have thrived in Golden State, because basketball is deeply about fit, timing, and opportunity. But the idea that you could drop Draymond into Charlotte or Washington and suddenly he becomes a 23 or 24 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists per night player, we have to slow down on that one. Some people genuinely believe Draymond had that kind of offensive ceiling, but held back doesn't feel like the right way to frame his career, not when we're still talking about him at this level. That's not what being held back looks like. Now, as a competitor, you always feel like there were layers to your game you never got to fully show, and I'll give Draymond that. That feeling is universal among elite players. But what makes Draymond's story even more compelling is where it started. I watched him come into Michigan State carrying extra weight in his freshman year when the Spartans lost to North Carolina in the national championship game. Then I watched him completely transform his body, his game, his mentality, and become one of the best college players in the country over the following seasons. So nothing is being taken away from him. He put in the work, he made it to the league, and when Golden State drafted him, I said at the time that he would have a bigger impact on that franchise than Harrison Barnes. I genuinely believed that. I don't always get those calls right, but watching how the pieces were fitting together, it felt clear that Draymond had the profile to leave a deeper mark. Barnes contributed early, no question, but history showed us who the Warriors chose to build around long term. Now, shifting to Austin Rivers, we can't have this conversation without acknowledging that his father, Doc Rivers, was in a position of power and did open doors for him. That's just the reality. But here's the thing. Austin Rivers doesn't look like someone who was handed something he had no business receiving. He could fill it up. 12 quick points off the bench, a 30-point night when he got rolling, he could get buckets at the NBA level. So while the opportunity came through family connections, he was capable enough to hold his own once he got out there. And honestly, if your son can go out there and look the part, compete, produce, and belong, then yes, a father in that position is going to choose his son over someone who might be marginally better. That's human nature, and it's also about building something generational for your family. Doc Rivers had to be thinking about exactly that, knowing that what he was building would carry forward for generations. Were there guys maybe a little more talented than Austin available? Possibly, but when your son can genuinely compete at that level, you're going to make that call every time.